Hey everyone, welcome back. For today, we're doing day 6, let's review. And for this question, it's going to test whatever that we have learned thus far, from data types to operators to for loops and so on and so forth. For this question, we're given a string s of length n is indexed from 0 to n minus 1, and we are supposed to print its even indexed and odd indexed characters as two space separated strings on a single line. So for example, if we have A, D, B, E, C, F, the even numbered characters would be A, B, and C, because in this case, the first index is 0, and the second index would be B, and the fourth index would be C. So in this case, it would be A, B, C, D, E, F, and D, E, F are just the odd number index characters. So if we look closely at the input, the first character is the number of input strings that we'll be reading in, followed by the subsequent lines that we are expected to pass. So to solve this question, the first thing that we have to do is to pass the number of lines that we need to read in. So we can start off by defining a variable, which is number of lines, and we can give this a type of integer, and we'll be reading this in from the input. And because this 2 over here is read in as a string, we have to cast it into an integer. And once we're done, we can iterate through this number of lines to get each of the lines accordingly. So for I in range number of lines, in this case, if you pass in a single integer, that will be taken as the end of the range, and it will start off from 0, and it will end in a number right before the number of lines. So in this case, it will be, if the input is 2, then the range would be 0, 1. But notice that we are iterating a collection of size 2, which is perfect. We have 2 lines and we want to iterate through this for loop twice. So the next step, at each iteration of the for loop, we are ready to read in the string, and we are ready to start doing some processing on top of that. So the current string can be passed in from the input with the input function again. And currently we are ready to start iterating the characters inside this string to separate them into odd and even strings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to define an even string. This even string will contain all even index characters inside current string. And I will do the same for the odd string as well. So once we're done, we're ready to start iterating the current string. So as we iterate through the current string for each character, we will also want to keep track of what is the index of the current character in current string. So to do that, I'll be defining current index, and this will be equals to 0. And once we're done, we're ready to start iterating the current character in current string. So for every current character, we'll be checking the current index. And if the current index is even, we will add it into the even string. Otherwise, we'll add it into the odd string. So if the current index modulo 2 is equal to 0, in this case, this means that the current index is even. Then we would add the even string with the new character that we have. Otherwise, we would add it into the odd string. And after every single iteration, remember to increment the current index by 1. And once we're done, we're ready to use f-string formatting to print out the even string as well as the odd string. Okay, we passed all the test cases. And there we go. This is the first method. This is a combination of all we have learned thus far. We use the input method as we used in the previous exercises to read in every single string input. And we also casted this into an integer to get the number of lines. We then pass this number of lines into the range object to start iterating through every single line, subsequent lines that contains the string. And what we do is we iterated through every single current string on each line, and we keep track of the current index to see if it's an even index or an odd index character. And we added it accordingly into the string for the even string and the odd strings. And finally, we formatted it with f-string formatting to print out the even string separately together with the odd string. So here's some additional bonuses. We could have used a standard method called enumerate that allows us to define the current index in this iteration as well. So if we use this method enumerate and pass in the current string to iterate, we can actually get a tuple where the tuple contains the current index together with the current character. And just like this, there is no need for us to define a separate current index variable to keep track of the current index for each character. So this is a little bonus, and this works. So that's the first bonus. The second bonus is actually we could have used another technique called string slicing to get the even strings and the odd strings. So we really didn't need this for loop. What we could have done is just do a string slice on current string itself. And the string slicing takes in 3 parameters. The first parameter is the start. The second parameter is the end that is exclusive of it. So if we pass in current string, this will end at the index right before this length, and that is actually the end of the string. And for the final one, that is the step. And in this case, we want to have a step of 2 because as we iterate through index 0, we want to jump to index 2 instead. We do not want to touch the odd because we're getting just the even index characters. So similarly, in this case, we can also do current string 0, we'll start from 1 because we want odd index characters. And similarly, we'll pass in the length of the current string because we want to go through the whole list. And if we run this code, this works as well. And if we wish to simplify this further, I guess let's just wait for this test case to finish. Taking some time. Okay, but it succeeds. To simplify this further, if we want to iterate through the string slicing through the whole string, there's no need for us to put the length of current string as the end. If it is not specified, it will just assume that we are supposed to slice through the whole string till the end. So if we have left it like this, it would have worked as well. And just like that, we are successful in simplifying our solution to an even shorter implementation. So with that, in summary, for this question, we went through a couple of methods, 2 methods to be specific, to implement this solution. The first method, both methods of which we share the same tactic, is defining the number of lines variable to keep track of the number of strings that we're going to pass. And we use a for loop to iterate through every single string that we have. And for the first method of getting the even and odd strings from the current string, we use the for loop to iterate through every single character in the current string and keep track of the current index. And with respect to this index, if it's even, we will put the even index character into the even string and do the same for the odd string. And afterwards, we use f-string formatting to format it accordingly. For the second method, we use string slicing, and we use the string slicing method to iterate through the current string with a step of 2. For the even string, we started off with index 0, the even index 0, and we just do a step of 2 across the whole string. And we do the same for the odd string, but starts from the odd index 1. And that's pretty much it for this question. If you find this video useful, please consider giving us a like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next video.